Hello, everybody. Scott McMeans here with another episode of the Business Spotlight. I'm here with Mark Higinbotham, and he is with Buckeye Trailers. Going to tell a really interesting story today about how he kind of got away from a couple different jobs and dove headfirst into making some of the coolest, most badass trailers you'll find on the road. So before we get into all that, Mark, I want to introduce you to the audience. So the camera and the microphone are yours. Tell us your story. How'd you get here?
You want the whole story or just try to get the condensed version?
We want to get the story that's going to tell who you are and how you got to be the guy that's behind Buckeye Trailers. That's what we want to hear.
Well, so I'm Mark, by the way, and I was raised on a farm here in Northeast Ohio. I got into the trailer industry in 2016, and it's kind of a interesting way how I got there. My dad ran a small construction company, and it was okay. I just never really cared for construction for some reason. I don't know why. I just didn't really like it. So I wanted to do something on a little bit bigger scale. I just didn't know what it was. And my dad's company had 5 to 9 guys in it, give or take. And I just couldn't hardly see the scale in that. So one day I came home in July of 2014, and I just told my wife, I said, I quit my job. We had gotten married in May of 2014, and I just quit.
The brave man. It's a brave man right there.
I don't know if it was, I don't know if it's brave or reckless or stupid or what, but I stopped at a neighboring farm on the way home, actually, and got a job there. That lasted a week. And so, might I add, at the construction job, I was making $30 an hour. This was 10 years ago now. So that was okay money. And then, so I took the farm job for 12. I
could see why the wife would be upset, or at least questioning what's going on.
Well, I think she was wondering maybe, who'd she marry? I think she was a little concerned about that. But so then I called a friend of mine who was general manager of a trailer place, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And he's like, well, come on down. I'll find something for you to do. So I went down, waited a week, went down, got hired in, and I got hired in inspecting trailers there. And so I think at that point in my life, I think it was an interesting spot to be, because I think whatever I maybe would have found at that point, I might have pursued and started doing, because I was just trying to figure everything out. I was newly married. I wanted to do something on my own. I didn't know what. We didn't have anything. We didn't have 2 nickels rubbed together. It went from $30 to $12 an hour, so we didn't have a whole lot of nickels. But when I went to the trailer company, it totally blew my mind on how a business actually can function and how it can run. After being there for like 4 or 5 months, it started to dawn on me. I was like 22 at the time, 21, 22. I started realizing, I'm like, the guy that owns this place doesn't live here. He lives in another state. And he has multiple, there was 40 people here at this one. There was 40 people there. And it was a great place to work. And I was just blown away at the scale, right? That was my first introduction into, more of, I guess you could say corporate America, but on the blue collar side, right? So as I started learning, I wanted to get better doing there. I wanted to stay there and grow as much as I could with that company. A weld position came available, and they asked me, they said, hey, you know anybody looking for a weld position? I said, well, I would like to. They said, can you weld? I said, well, yeah, sure. And I had never pulled actually pulled the trigger on a MIG gun a day in my life before that, believe it or not.
Wait a minute. You told them you could weld, but you've never welded before?
I told them I could, and I never had.
That a boy. All right. Fake it till you make it. That's to the extreme, because I'm pretty sure they picked up easily. I don't think this guy knows how to weld. I mean, it's not a skill you can pick up in a heartbeat, right? It's a pretty good skill set.
Well, yeah. See, that's the part. That we'll get to that, right? At this point, I'm still just trying to buffalo to keep going, right?
So good.
I went home and I studied quite a bit on MIG welding, this, that, and the other, and I'd play around. It was probably 2 or 3 weeks from the time I told them that I would till the time they actually put me over into a weld position. And so when nobody was looking, I would be over there messing with that welder, trying to somewhat figure it out. The night before I go in to weld the next day, I watched YouTube videos for 2 hours. And then I walked in there the next day picked up a hood and was like, show me what to do. Luckily, they just put me building some small trailers. And I had a really good trainer, actually, thankfully. And I kind of fumbled along and let him kind of lead me along, like I kind of knew what I was doing, but it was just enough to try to like get the trailer built. And I just like kind of buffaloed my way through a little bit and was trying to do some welds that were like inconspicuous places and was trying to let him do most of the welding. And yeah, I was thinking that I was going to be fired at the end of the trailer because I was like, this is probably not turning out to plan.
Okay.
But when they inspected the trailer, I still remember he looked at the trailer, the inspector, and he goes, well, that looks like total dog crap, but I guess we can probably make something with it.
There it is. There, just make it happen. And
Yep.
I'm not going to let the irony of you making the comment, I buffaloed my way through it, because my whole thought process is be the buffalo, charge the storm. You literally had a storm upon you. You buffaloed your way through it. Just go forward, hit the storm, and keep going. Because you know if you get through it, you're going to be better off on the other side. That's brilliant. I love it. So,
I was hoping I was going to be better off. Yeah.
so okay, you've done this. Now, how did that get into the point where, all right, now I know how to go soup to nuts on building these trailers that I feel comfortable enough. I'm gonna go do it on my own.
So it was a while. I mean, probably 6 months. After I was there for 6 months, then I went into welding. I was there total of 2 years. And then when I got into welding, I really did I really did study on it and really did practice and I really did put forth a lot of effort to get better at it. And the I learned that welding was a small part of it. Actually, what served me the best was the background in construction because most of the trailers we built, we were freehand fabricating. We had measurements and we were just like freehand fabricating them without jig tables or anything like that.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, that part, actually, it was more important that I knew how to fab. I mean, definitely the trailer's got to hold together. That it doesn't discount the weld part, okay? It doesn't discount that, but I've seen guys come in that were ace welders, way better, even still way better than I could be, but they just can't get the fab side down.
Yeah.
And if you can't get the fab side down, then it makes it pretty tough.
I think it's pretty good to have a nice design, whether it's free, like you said, freehand manufacturing or not. But you have to be able to actually keep the trailer together. So, yeah,
Right.
fabricating good,
That's what,
welding good.
right. Yeah. No, the welds they have to be above par. That's what I say. Not to discount that part, but I've seen some of the other, like I've seen some pipeline guys come in off of the pipeline, and I mean, lay down some absolutely just phenomenal welds, like beautiful, but just very slow at fabricating and fitting stuff together, just because they were used to putting some pipe together, beveling it out,
Yeah.
running the welds in there. It's just a little bit different process. But back to your question. Sorry, I digressed there.
You're good.
Back to your question. From there, it was a series of things from there. I mean, because I was moved around the plant. I learned how to build. They built, they must have built 20 plus models there, probably 30 plus models. They built everything from a single axle trailer all the way up to multi car hauler.
Okay.
40 footers, 50 foot. They did it. And I was moved all around that plant. I ended up doing quite a bit with warranty and repairs, different things that would happen. And so whenever I left there, I'd hit a point where I didn't think, I'm like, well, I'm probably not, I thought I was going to take my chances on advancement somewhere else. I figured I was kind of advanced out. The next position to go, I wasn't sure where that would go, but it was a good friend of mine that ran the place, and just things being sticky there as far as that goes. You have friend relationship, work relationship. We did very good at keeping that separate. We're still good friends today.
That's good to
But
hear. Honestly, that's good to hear
yeah,
because
yeah.
you can see how relationships get tarnished with stuff like this. But okay, that's good.
Well, and you got to be able to draw that line, right? If you're entering into that, and we had that conversation when I was coming there. It's like, hey, I'm your friend, but I'm also your employer, and so there's lines there. Anyhow, I left. I went back to construction, but I had a better idea on kind of what I thought I could do now, right? So I thought I'm going to go in the trailer business. I'm just buying some axles and some steel, and I'll just start building trailers, and it'll be just like down there. Before you know what'll happen, they'll just fly off the shelves. I thought it would be that simple.
How easy? Yes, it's just so simple to do that.
Just like the welding.
I mean, throw yourself into the mix. You're going to learn how to swim soon enough. So,
So from there, when I went back to work for my dad, that was tough because I hated construction. I didn't want that future, right? But so I built one trailer. I built it fit half in and half out of his farm shop. Trailer was 50 feet long, and the shop was 30 feet deep. So that was interesting.
okay, so you're moving it constantly to do different parts and components of this trailer, so it's in and out of the barn.
We built it all like that. I would tarp it if it was raining, and I would prop plywood up to keep from blowing my weld gas away. And sometimes I'd build I had like a little plywood thing that I would kind of try to move along as I was welding to try to keep the wind off of it, because the farm was on a hill and it was always windy up there.
Jeez, oh man. All right. So in addition to making it much more hard or harder than it should have been, you're building this trailer. Now what? You got to sell it. You got to get rid of it, right?
Now there comes the interesting part.
Yeah.
Um, the trailers sell themselves was always the assumption I kind of had. Now you don't need salespeople; they sell themselves. Turned out I was not that great with people, and when it came to trying to sell the product, we had that trailer for 7 months, I think, and all the time my wife's like, "Just let me try to sell it. Let me try to sell it." And I'm like, no, you don't. What do you know about trailers? You don't know anything about trailers. You can't sell it. Blah blah blah. Finally, I'm like, fine, whatever. I don't even know. I'm never touching the trailer again. If we can just get our money back, I'll just be happy. Just sell the trailer. Just get rid of it. And first phone call she took, she sold that trailer. A true story. True story. First call.
All right. So much is to unwrap here, Mark, because we normally on the show talk a lot about the lessons learned and the challenges and all that. And you're telling your story, and wrapped inside the story is I had this really cool ambition. I just wanted to have my own job. I wanted to have my own company. And I'm doing all these wonderful things. And I make this amazing product. And now I can't even sell it. And then your wife says, well, listen, dummy, let me just let me see what I can do. And she sells it. So one of the first lessons you learned is trailers don't sell themselves. Somebody needs to tell their story so they can be sold. And I'm assuming your wife's a great storyteller.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's personality too, right? She's easy to like. She's easy to like on the phone. I may be biased. I think she's easy to like, but
I would hope so, right? I would hope
yeah,
so.
apparently. Well, customers did too, because for probably 3 years after that, I mean, she would sell trailers with baby on her hip walking through Walmart while she was grocery shopping. I mean, that
Okay.
was how sales ran.
So there's a lot of lessons here, right? So as a new business owner, trying to figure out how this all works, following the Buckeye trailer model, it's screw it, just get it done, dive in, figure out how to get it done as you're doing it. And as you figure this out, all right, put that in your back pocket because that's a lesson I learned. I'm going to apply it to the next challenge. As you're moving through this, you realize, all right, make a great product, it'll sell itself. Okay, my product's so good, but I need someone to tell that story. Now that they told the story, our people are buying them. Now that the people have bought them, you got to have great customer service. Like you said, your wife's got a great personality. She's taking care of people. So now you've got this great product with a great sales process, and now you got somebody to take care of your customers. That's a pretty good business model to make sure any product gets off the shelves and stays in a customer's hands in a happy fashion. It's a really good concept, right? I wouldn't say you stumbled across it. I would say you failed forward a few different times and you got it figured out. But in essence, like we talked about earlier on when we talked separately, time, money, people, or motivation. That's every business problem and challenge out there. You had probably the biggest challenge possible, an amazing product, but nobody out there to buy it. You just had the wrong person in front of the house trying to sell it. You make that one change, look at that. Look what happens. So I love the idea of this conversation because there's so much unwritten or undiscussed stuff, and we're pulling it out because this is a good lesson. I appreciate you taking the time to go through it. Okay, now you've got the first trailer sold. What happens? Where do you go
Well,
from there?
the first trailer sells. I didn't think I was going to be doing any more. Actually, I could go a little bit deeper. I don't know if I'll get in trouble here or not. Um, After that first sale, I didn't think I was really going to do any more. And so my wife thought that during that time she was going to become a day trader, actually, unbeknownst to me at
Oh,
this point.
okay.
So yeah, it's I might get in trouble for this part, but so there was actually so that trailer yielded $13,000, and I forget what exactly we had in it, but we had made a little bit, so it was $13,000, and to us this was a lot. Well, she had been studying some day trade stuff. Long story short, we lost every bit of that 13,000. I
Okay.
find out like 2 o'clock in the morning whenever she's telling me about these trailer. Somebody's calling, they're wanting some trailers, and I'm like, okay, well, we have this, we can buy the material, and then I find out, no, we don't have it.
All right. Huge challenge. Huge challenge. How do we get around the corner and get back on track? What happened to go from that situation to
So
now?
from there, I was like, well, now we have to build these three trailers somehow because we got to try to recoup some money. I think there was three different people that wanted they each wanted a trailer. We each got a credit card with 0% down for like it was 0% for 6 months or 3 months. It was like a special, hey, 0%, $5,000, $10,000. Hers was a lot higher. Mine was probably 500. Hers was like 10,000. Because I had zero credit. But anyway, um, we rolled the dice. We just moved on from that. Bought the raw material, built the trailers, moved them out, recouped from that, and she had actually sold those trailers. Convinced me, well, there was those three trailers. Maybe we should just keep trying to advertise. And so I did. Meanwhile, I was still working. So from 2016, uh, I worked a full time job. 2017, we'd sold three trailers. Still working for my dad full time. 2018, I think we had 5 or 6 orders, and I thought, sure, we were in the trailer business then. During this time too, we weren't building half in and half out of the barn anymore. We had purchased property where we were at now, and it was an acre with a house and a pole barn on it, both of which that probably needed tore down. Um, my wife actually cried the day we bought the house. Actually, I had borrowed I think $30,000 from a friend and bought the house. So it's not much of a house for 30 grand.
All right. This is one thing I will tell you, and I think this is the embodiment of your conversation so far, is ambition never stops.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it doesn't stop. So you have a couple different challenges and roadblocks in the way, but all right, just like water somehow beats down a rock, you found a way to get around it. You found a way to get to this path. And now, okay, got a couple trailers being sold. Now, how do you start Buckeye? Like what's the genesis that says the spark has been lit, let's go?
Well, in 2018, I thought that was it. I think it was in March of 2018 that I quit my job with my dad. I hired a guy part time, started I had those 5 trailers to build. I thought sure that was going to be it. I was off. I was in the trailer business. Built those 5 or 6 trailers, and then I didn't have any more orders. And so then now I'm like, now I'm really upset and wanting to know what in the world I'm supposed to do. I actually had to go back to work for my dad, which I think was probably the lowest point I had probably ever been to right there. I thought I had did it. I thought this was what business was about. Remember, I'm just total technician, right? This is all it takes to run a business. You just build this product and it's here. I was still in that mindset. And so I had to go back to work, and I called a friend of mine who ran a company, and they were doing like $3 million, I think, doing pipelining and tree trimming and stuff like that. And he said, well, your problem is you're not working hard enough. Well, I blew up. I'm on the phone, and I was really mad. I'm like, I work around the clock. What are you talking about? He goes, no, you're not putting enough work in the right areas. He's like, you go build the trailers all you want. He's like, you hire somebody for $20 an hour to build the trailers. You got to go do something else. It still wasn't clicking with me, right? Like, I'm like, what is he talking about? And he said, you know what? He said, we talked quite a bit. He said, don't ever call me again to talk about business unless you start reading. He'd been telling me to read books.
Yeah.
And he asked me on that call, what's the last book you read? I said, I don't have time to read. And he said, don't ever call me and talk about business again until you read the 10X rule. And I hung up. I actually just hung up. I was like, yeah, click. Hung up, went back to work. I was like, whatever, this guy, get out of my life. That's what that was my attitude. Yeah. It kind of nagged me. So like 2 or 3 days later, I downloaded the book and I started listening to it, and I couldn't stop listening to it. I finished the book in like right about a day, maybe a little bit over a day. Called him the next day, and I was like, dude, you're right. I'm like, I have not been putting the right effort in the right amount of areas, and it's going to be 10 times harder than I think it's going to be. That was my dad. I mean, my dad did well. My dad still does decent, but he's always just been like, it's always been more, hey, the work's going to come in. Hey, it's not that big of a deal. Hey, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to put some bids in. And it works for him. Somehow it works. I don't know. But the gist of that book, the 10X rule, is you're going to have to put in 10 times more the amount of effort than you actually think you're going to have to.
Yeah.
So whatever the amount of work you think it's going to take, multiply that times 10. That was I don't know if you've read the book. I recommend it.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah. And you're right. Because new business owners, any business owner, you made the comment, I was in the mindset of a technician, and we have been geared for years. Well, I work 60 hours a week. That's the only way I know how to put food on the table. Right. Until you take a step back and you realize, I don't need to work 60 hours a week. I need to produce 60 hours worth of productivity in a week. How do I go about doing it? With the right focus in the right areas, and that other people help you. That's how you do this successfully. It's not about how hard you work. It's about how smart you are putting your efforts into the right spots.
Oh, definitely. But at first you think that effort is building the trailer, so making the pie, cleaning the house, whatever it is that somebody is doing. That's where you think your effort has to be at first. And yeah, it's a hard rut to get out of. If things start to take off, if you can't change that and get out of that, I mean, that's why 90% of small businesses fail, 95%, something like that.
Because you're just not mentally, you're not prepared for what you might be prepared for the work you need to do, but you're not prepared for the work you're doing is not yielding what you think. And there's so many other things that you're forgetting about. Again, going back to the concept you said about, I was a really good mindset towards being a technician. Technicians are really good in a very myopic viewpoint of what needs to take place in a business. They're not thinking about marketing, accounts receivable. They're not thinking about expenses. They're not thinking about all those stuff. They're thinking about doing the task. Great. You need a bunch of those people on your team, not that person trying to run the team. It's a very different mentality to step out of that space and be a boss. I give you credit for kind of, all right, you're revolutionary moment came, and all right, now I can start doing it. So talk to me about the start, the actual when was it that you said, boom, I'm finally Buckeye Trailer?
Oh, well, that would have been, so I went back to work in 2018. We sold, I think we did like 20 trailers in 2019. Maybe it was 15. 15, I think it was 20 trailers because the next year it was almost 50. In 2020, I hired my first full-time person. And then I quit again in 2020. And this was in March of 2020. And that I knew I was cemented in the trailer business center, at least thought I was. Um, this was right, and people aren't sure what's going to happen. We got the
Oh yeah.
election up, we got COVID that end up coming later, and all that stuff. Um, so I made my first full time hire then. He's actually still with us. He's actually our production manager now.
Love it.
He started. I mean, the only thing he knew how to do was run a grinder at that point, right? That was all. That was all he knew how to do.
So wait a minute, why'd you hire him if that was his only skill set?
That's a good question. We were back and forth with whether or not should I hire somebody, should I not? Can I afford to hire somebody? Can I pay somebody? Looking back now, it seems like it's a silly conversation, but at the time it was real. It was a big deal, right? There's only so much money to go around, very scarcity mindset, and I'm standing in the vestibule of our church, and this kid goes to walk past me. I say, kid, he's not that. What is he? 6 years younger than me. And I said, hey, I was like, what are you doing for work? And I hadn't hardly said a few words to him before that. I knew who he was. And he's like, oh, nothing. He goes, I just got out of college 2 weeks ago. I said, what was it for? He's like, oh, he was he got 2 years in business. I'm pretty sure it was 2 years in business. And I said, well, do you want to learn how to build trailers? He said, I don't know, sure. I said, when do you want to start? He goes, when do you want me to start? I said, tomorrow morning, 7:00. He said, okay, I'll be there. It wasn't even a 5-minute conversation.
And now he's your production manager. That's fantastic.
Now he's production manager. Yeah.
5 years later, he's helping you run the shop.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Fantastic, man. All this is kind of telling the story, Mark. Again, ambition never stops. The idea of how many different roadblocks and not blunders, but how many different things you've come across, you just find a way to get around them because you are so dedicated. At least this is what I'm picking out of you. You always had this safety net of going back to with your dad, but you hated that so much that you always wanted to come out of that world. And now that you've gotten out of that world a couple times, I don't want to go back. This is what I'm good at, and this is what I can do. But along the way, you've kind of bounced yourself off the guardrails a little bit, where you've learned, okay, boom, I hit this side. All right, I got to find somebody to sell my stuff. Boom, I got to find somebody who has a different mindset or put a different mindset in my own head that I can't be in a scarcity mindset. Got to be abundant. I got to think bigger than what I have right now. Get away from tasks, get more strategic. Look at big picture stuff and don't be so wrapped up in this little widget is so good. I got to be able to tell this story. There's a lot wrapped up in here. You've been doing this for a couple of years now. You're 5 years past that 2020 mark. What would you say is the biggest accomplishment you've had since 2020 and now in this new mindset of Buckeye Trailer?
Oh man. The biggest accomplishment. Shoot. There's a lot of different ways you could go with that, I guess, as far as, company goals wise, personnel wise, hire wise. I guess can you break that down a little bit, exactly unpack that a little bit on what exactly you mean by
For you, Mark, the guy, personally, the business owner, I don't really care where you come from on the answer. I'm curious to learn what is it that you would consider is your best, most accomplished thing since tearing apart the reins or the tether and saying, I'm on this alone. I'm making Buckeye Trailer work. What's happened since then that makes you the most proud? And it could be personal. I don't mind either way, because either way, Mark, this is going to tell the audience there's more to every story than just, yeah, I'm a successful business owner. There's all these other components to who I am as a person in a business. And that's why our trailers are the best, whatever you want to say. But I want to get to the essence behind what do you think is the most successful accomplishment?
I mean, I think it's probably a little bit tied. It's going to be maybe a little bit. The answer is going to be not quite so straightforward, I guess, because I think you have to become a different person at every stage. And a lot of times where you're wanting to go, it's the person you have to become and develop to get there that is actually the biggest part of the whole thing to fight. But getting that can yield so many things, right? Like I think as far as our biggest accomplishment, it's the amount of people that we have now, the team that we have put together now. It's hard to put together a team. It's hard to bring people together and get everybody on the same page. And I think that I've been unusually blessed with um, getting guys that know how to. Got guys here that are at this shop that have been building trailers since practically before I was born. Um, I've got just from the result of hiring one guy, there was 7 hires I think in connection to this one guy coming to work here. So and now it's I really get excited about building more of the team. I think until this year I'm going through another phase, like another transition. The company's crossed a milestone and now we're trying to reorganize. We're opening another facility, and now it's more, I guess I have a little bit more of a team building mindset now and in the last 2 months than I've had ever previously, because it's really within the last 6 months it's really fully clicked on the fact that it's the people. Yeah, Mark, you had a great idea way back in 2016. Okay, this was a cool idea, but it wasn't Mark that took it from 2016 to 34 people today. I had a small part in that, and that was the vision and the drive and the not quitting, and like that's the part that I brought. Everybody else has pushed it to where it's at now.
Okay. All the conversation we've had so far, that's the first comment you've actually made overtly that says, I am a business owner with the right mindset, because you're focusing on not the widget. You're not focusing on you. You're focusing on what the business is doing as a whole, and giving credit to the how many people are on your team. That is a true business owner, because they recognize the thing they've created is now being fed by all these other people that share your vision, share your interest in doing something of a high quality and having pride in what they do. That's a true business owner, because you're so distant from the product. You're now more concerned about the team. That, Mark, is to me the pinnacle of accomplishment. Just being honest. That's awesome.
Yeah, you break it down, and I guess I had never thought about it in that way, but you're right. Yeah, before I probably 6 months ago or more, I probably would have been product related.
Yeah.
Honestly, it
It's
was.
and okay, you made comment earlier that your dad does really well and he has a great business, but you were looking for something you can grow and scale and do these things with it. Looking back on that commentary and kind of going through this little history lesson of yourself, I have to believe you are very, maybe not openly willing to admit it, but you've got to be very proud of what you've created, because it is so scalable. And through this 9-year journey from 16 to now, you've grown in such a way that you're the one who grew, wasn't necessarily the business. And I say that with pure admiration, because not too many people will follow your footsteps and be that person that recognizes it's me that needed to grow and change, not necessarily the business. And because you did, now the business is rewarding you because you are able to grow and scale it in the way you've designed it. And that to me is the best way to have that go down. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you, thank you. You
Yeah,
make it
no, you should be.
sound like somebody who's like it's like it's in control. But I feel like every day somebody's gonna walk in and realize you have no idea what you're doing.
Okay. All right, I gave you all the flowers. Okay, now the reality is, yeah, at some point you have to have that fear, because that's what drives you to not go back and work with your father again. It's, I don't want to lose what I have. So it's a different mentality. You don't want to lose what you built, as opposed to have to go back to something you don't want to do. That's a different story, right? But having that drive, and again, ambition never rests. Ambition doesn't stop. You are set in this world of I am going to keep moving forward, regardless of what impediment is in my way. Huge. I love it. I got one final question for you. We got like a minute left.
All right.
If you were to go back to an 18-year-old Mark, sit down next to a park bench, what would you tell
Hmm.
him? Such a great question, isn't it?
Yeah, with 1 minute left. Yeah, that's a big
Yep.
one.
Well, I didn't
Uh,
mean to do that to you, but
man, honestly, I think one thing that I still come up against now, I think, and it would be that, you know, trust the process on if you're taking the right steps, you're taking the right actionable steps, and as long as you have a strong faith in God and you're doing what you feel like He wants you to do, because we have a small window of time on this earth. 3 years from now, my grandkids or my great grandkids they're not gonna have any idea really who I was. I don't know who my great grandfather was. The name rarely surfaces, right? My kids will never hear the name. That's what'll happen. And I would say, I guess, making sure that you're aligned with God, because at the end of the day, that's what matters.
and
We
that's
have
where you go back. I I love it. Mark, I want to thank you for being on the program. That's a great way to end this. I want to wish everybody come back, check out the Business Spotlight again. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.